What a pleasure to have you with us today and share what I have learned in the last 6 months or so with the great platform that's the Cyber Future Foundation leadership team is, and I wish more people know about it. So let's start with a quick introduction with your little bit of background and the office that you represent. I think probably you can be more authentic than my enthusiastic self. I tend to be very kind of I would say the potential for the organization that you and the department that you belong is just incredible, and we have probably seen a sliver of that. So welcome to the Cyber Talent Week, and see how
Thank
we can
you.
expand through this conversation or avenues for the talent that you represent.
Absolutely. First of all, Val, thank you so much for having me here today and inviting even my colleagues I know are joining tomorrow from CISA, from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. My name is Corinda Washington. I am the Executive Director for Social Impact and Campaigns at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in our Office of Partnership and Engagement. And for government, right? So it keeps going. Office of Partnership and Engagement within the Office of the Secretary and DHS headquarters. And so it's just, a blessing to be able to work in the capacity. I've been with the department next month, 11 years. It
Oh,
seems
congrats.
like, I just joined and here we are. I joined the Senior Executive Service last May, so coming up on a year on that anniversary as well. And then a few months later, was asked to stand up external affairs for Operation Allies Welcome. And it
Wow.
happened in like a 24-hour span. It was just like, oh, you got a phone call. And I was downtown DC at a meeting. And it's like, and tomorrow you need to report at OAW. I'm sorry, I thought we were doing Operation Allies Refuge. Yes, and now we're doing Welcome, and you're up. So for 4 months, I led external affairs and private sector outreach for OAW.
Yeah, no, that was I think where we met, and then I was quick to realize that's not your only job,
No,
right? So
it
tell us
was
a little bit
not.
about the division that you represent and what it does. How can we get it out?
Yeah, so in 2015, and that was the unity of effort um, that Secretary Johnson created our Office of Partnership and Engagement. And so, for those of you who may be familiar with the department, we had our private sector office
Mhm.
and our Office for State and Local Law Enforcement and several other offices. Our If You See Something, Say Something campaign, which I hope everyone has heard of, our Blue campaign, which is our human trafficking awareness. 9 different offices and campaigns were merged together. It was the biggest merger and acquisition of our federal history,
Wow.
to be able to pull all these different offices together to stand up an external affairs and external engagement office on behalf of the secretary. And so we facilitate Secretary of Homeland Security, Deputy Secretaries' engagement with governors and mayors and CEOs and CISOs and CSOs
Yeah.
and university presidents, doing all those partnerships to ensure that the dialogue is two-way and
Sure.
that it is not this one-sided government. A lot of the conversation earlier was resonated with me because talent exchange programs. We've created opportunities and career pipelines in order for us to engage with our partners, but also to build the DHS workforce.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, just the whole OAW program itself is a reflection of all the connections and all the, engagements and all the responsibilities that you had before. So could you lead us up a little bit in on the way of, how industry works with you, and or is it within industry, or is it within specific divisions? How does the Office of Partner Engagement work?
Absolutely. So, of course, with the Department of Homeland Security, also a huge merger and acquisition,
Sure.
right? And so all these different components come in, and then you're trying to figure out, where do I go?
Mhm.
So if I'm industry and I want to do business with the department, okay, procurement, but what aspect of procurement do I go? Or if I am a CISO and I'm looking to get resources. And so I'm not trying to do business per se,
Mhm.
but I am trying to get access to the resources or the
Sure.
National Risk Management Center or however, CISA. So we became that one-stop shop to say, knock on our door first. We will help you navigate this space that is called
Oh,
DHS and get you connected. And so a number of our private sector partners, when I started my career at DHS in our private sector office. And
wow.
so it will always hold a special place in my heart because that was my job, was to help to have these conversations. And so two programs that I am going to champion here from this stage is because I was able to create them is our loan executive program, which allows us to bring in industry and advise us on some of our most critical challenges on their company's dime, by the way, but mutually beneficial.
Of course.
And so one was like our travel and tourism initiative and like those stale all white walls coming into the arrivals hall and international arrivals halls. Like, how can we improve this? How can we give our passengers more understanding of wait times and all those things? So we brought in some execs, Disney, from the airlines and all those to advise us. And then the other one is Exemplar, which would allow DHS employees to go out and embed with industry as well. So again, getting that ROI and really working on mutually beneficial things, but everything from critical infrastructure protection to emergency management. I've worked a lot with industry on disaster response and recovery preparedness. All of those things are embedded into our private sector outreach and engagement.
Wow. So that must be kind of a very, it might be very broad, but also you choose certain areas. Do you focus on certain areas more because of the name itself? The Department of Homeland Security has so many connections. It's a collaborative environment, and of course, from the cybersecurity angle, we have always been connected with the NPPD, which is now CISA.
Right.
Right. So if somebody from the outside is wanting to come in and again explore the resources, where do you want them to start?
Start at the Office of Partnership and Engagement
Okay, remember that.
and at DHS and the inbox is DHS Impact at HQ.dhs.gov. And why is because, again, trying to lessen that burden on the layperson, the non-gov individual
Sure.
who's just trying to navigate these spaces and having the agility that we can partner with our private sector partners and sometimes allowing industry to serve as convener and inviting us into those conversations or inviting us into those initiatives because you all have a lot of flexibility on this private sector side than we do at times, but we know that we have the resources and we know that we also have capabilities and we're bringing something to the table. So we really want to be one of my previous assistant secretaries would say, we're at that intersection of economic and national security.
Sure.
And if we don't have that imbalance or at least some type of harmonious flow, then we're not doing our jobs. And so that was an integral part of even with OAW was making sure that public-private, private-private, public-public mix.
That is right. I mean, we talk
was
about
there.
public-private all the time, but it is actually, and it was fascinating to see how quickly the team was stood up, right? And I think that is something maybe you can guide others to do even within industry. When I saw the emails coming from someone from FBI, Lisa probably was there, and then Jervon from TSA, and all of a sudden they're all assimilated into HQ in your team.
Yes.
Right. How do you do that?
So, Bob Fenton, you don't know his name, Google him, Gen Zers. But, Bob Fenton, FEMA Region 9 administrator, was called upon by Secretary Mayorkas to stand up OAW literally overnight. And his leadership capability, I'm thinking about hundreds of us that got that same call, but he was called to be our leader. There was just a feeling that we received, still in the pandemic, mind you, and we're all called to report in to campus to this new unified coordination group. And in that structure and in that moment, we knew that we were here for a unified work and effort and mission. And as public servants, we're tied to it. But yeah, the person who comes and sits in my office and says, I'm sorry, I don't know where I'm supposed to sit. Oh, you can plop here for a second. Hours later, I find out that he's an ambassador.
Wow.
And he just introduces himself just casually, his first name. And I'm thinking, sir, I just also Googled, I'm not a Gen Zer, but I also Googled you. And I just found out you're an ambassador. And he said, today, none of that matters.
Mhm.
What matters is us ensuring that our Afghan allies are arriving here safely and that we are getting them the resources that they need. And that was just a moment for me to level set, the most humbling. Nobody cares that you're in the senior executive service at this moment. Whether you're a 12 or SES, we're here for one mission, and people came from all over government to assist.
That is so true. And the timing of this, just few hours to get together, and then coming to deliver this whole program, standing up the a public sector, or I think NGO, Welcome.US and all that,
Yeah.
to that transition over. I think that was as well done as it could be within the situation. Um, I'll probably pivot a little bit around your personal journey as well, if I may.
Sure.
I think you're a very successful leader within the government, but you also maintain a very public profile also too, and that I find is very encouraging. Uh, how do you kind of motivate others to kind of follow the path that you have done? And we are trying to crack that nut within cyber as an industry to infuse DEI as role models. There are so few, but I think there's a potential for many, right? Just as you are.
Absolutely. I I was featured during Black History Month for the department, and um, on MLK Day, Secretary Mayorkas and I did an engagement with some youth, and he's just one of the most humble servants ever. But we're crafting his tweet, and in true Secretary Mayorkas fashion, instead of the tweet saying, I met with students from, these two organizations, we craft it and it goes to him, and he is able to approve his own tweets when it's coming from his official account. He wants to be able to have final sign off on his tweet. And so he's like, approved. And when that tweet goes out, it says, Corinda Rowland, who's our Chief Human Capital Officer, and I met with. That was an edit from leadership. And in his mindset is, this representation matters. That I can't be the face all the time of our leadership and the capabilities and our mission and the things that we're able to accomplish. But if I'm not elevating other voices and I'm not providing these images, then how does the student, the fifth grader or the GS9 recognize they too can come up this ladder? They too can be senior executive service one day. And so just yesterday, a TSA agent saw that post and reached out to me and said, I'm going to take a chance. I'm breaking all kind of protocol right here by reaching out to someone on your level outside of my organization. Yeah. Would you be willing to have a mentoring session with me? Wow. And we did that for 30 minutes. She's in her car on her break. If she's willing to do that, I'm willing to meet her where she is, because that's what's teeing up the next generation. And speaking of that next generation, my intern is here and has spent the semester.
Congratulations. Yes.
Giovanna is here. It's important for me to expose students like Giovanna to say, you're going to go out on official travel with me. And do that and mean that. And for her peers to say, well, how come our supervisors didn't take us out on official travel? How does that work? But that experience, I hope, for Giovanna, right? She's going to go back to her campus. They're going to be in person this fall, next semester. She's going to go back to her campus. She's going to talk about that experience, talk about that experiential learning opportunities. I was on official travel. I wore the DHS gear.
Wow.
I had the jacket. I had the polo. I was official. Those are the things, those are experiences that I want students to have, but you can do that when you're in position to open doors for others.
Absolutely, so true. And I feel it fascinating that you're able to do this within the public sector and within the agency, right? Which typically people would have a little bit of the thinking like complex. But go Giovanna, go Karinda. This is awesome. I think even the tweet that you mentioned is so important. How you as a leader represent a particular situation, an encounter, an engagement makes so much of a difference. So thank you for bringing it up. Um, I saw you also in another the other light of actually being fully engaged with the OAW, in a capacity and at a level that I would not expect at your level to be like all the time. It was like very approachable, very engaged. We get response fairly quickly, considering the number of stakeholders you're talking to. How do you manage your kind of reach out and engagement? There must be some secret to the balance of life. If there
It's
is
a
any.
work in progress. Giovanna will be able to attest to this. And I'm thankful that we have a number of young people on our staff. And to really, for them to see that day in a life and to see what that grind is, honestly, and those sacrifices during OAW, that 4 months of my life right now is still a blur, honestly, because being over private sector engagement, especially in those early days, in those early weeks, it was, we're out of diapers at Holloman, or we need formula at Fort McCoy. And so here I was in this space of, wow, this is disaster response recovery, right?
Sure.
We're in this response mode, and understanding that the shoulders that are, or the stress or the pressure that's on me, that I'm carrying on my shoulders, also extended out to my team. And then I had a whole day job that I had to shift and align to someone else. And so I still say that there is going to be a moment where we all, just talking to another colleague yesterday that was on OAW with me, that we all will get to that moment to really pause and just be in that moment and reflect of the selflessness that we had to bring to the table in order to truly get OAW phase 1 completed. But now that I'm back at my day job, just to be honest, it's still a work in progress. Because, it's Homeland Security. It's the nature of the job, but really encouraging my team. Like, I have a team member who's moving. Put that phone away. Get your family situated. Congratulations on the new house. We love to see pictures when it's time, and being respectful of that. So it's on me as well not to reach out. And I just commended my team. I just took 2 weeks off, completely off the grid, didn't take any devices, not one work device, just had one device, my personal device. And for 2 weeks, I didn't get a call or a text.
Congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you. I didn't realize how tired I was though either. Right. So we have to take care of ourselves in the process of doing all that we can to take care of others.
I think that goes without saying, like, the
self-care, all these terms, like, let's do it. Let it be more than a hashtag. Like, really do it.
You have to do it.
You have to do it.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I have to probably kind of bring this topic up is because you might be feeling it naturally. Crisis management response is probably a natural thing for you. I have to at least say from the outside. But how do you balance? Like, I think this is probably very relevant to the job that we do. Most of the work that we are doing right now in the cyber world is reactive. Like, we're responding to crisis, responding to incidents. What is your guidance for the leaders in this space who are dealing crisis after crisis? Because pretty much that's what you have done and responded to, but also taken the learning from one to build other, better.
Yeah, so the crises will come, and so they're ebbing and flowing. But I think it's in times like this, these forums like this, that we say, like, in steady state. When we're not in true response mode, this is the time to make these connections. This is the time to really talk through strategy and all those things. And it gets interrupted. I've had a draft watermark on my strategic objectives and goals for quite some time because it gets interrupted. But when we have those opportunities to build meaningful partnerships, meaningful relationships, I think that's in the time of the crisis is when you can make that phone call, or when Val can make a phone call and say, can you be on my panel or participate, right? It's because a relationship was built ahead of actually really needing to call, make that phone call. And so I think we need to be, especially in this pandemic environment, as we're continuing to make our way out of it, we had to be really intentional in that space to make new connections, to make meaningful connections. And so just encouraging us to continue to do that. And then, being okay with reevaluating that connection.
Sure.
It is that
You have to be
season
honest to
work,
yourself and your connection, right? I mean,
that season work, but this partnership is feeling a little lopsided right now. And so maybe I need to put this to a quarterly check-in or, every 6 months or something in order for me to really be able to focus in on the things that I need to get done.
Yeah, no, I think, that's prioritization. Sometimes when you prioritize something, you deprioritize a whole lot of other things so that you can put your attention to it. So, no, very well said. And I think, for the executives that we deal with on a daily basis is something that that typically we don't consider so much. Maybe we do, subconscious, but not consciously. Well, there's another angle that I want to touch with you is because, again, well, my experience goes back to OAW, and that'll stay with me for life. And actually, was a life-changing moment, I should say. That the whole reason I chose to quit a very very comfortable, I would say, job when compared to others, was the reason the last 6 months of spending time with Jen, spending time with you and your teams, and in fact the visit to the camps. Right, I think it will change your life, and you should be able to come back and do things differently and reassess. So I wanted to touch upon that a little bit. With your OAW experience, can you maybe remark on the new talent flow that we come in, and how can we best utilize that? Because one thing I've been very open about it. I'll tell. I have no kind of remorse about talk. I don't want to see people on the streets and no, this is applicable both for domestic situation as well as refugees. Right. How can we make sure we go reach out to where they are and be able to help them? Right. Because that's a great talent base. You got 100-200,000 people who are in the country right now that you could tap into. Right.
Yeah, so OAW phase 1 completed with about 85,000 that came through phase 1, and now we're in phase 2, and we have about 1,000 in our care, loose quotes, right now. And so that process of getting the employment authorization, making sure that the decisions align with the legislation or the authorities that we needed. And so in the very early weeks, we recognized that, employment authorization cards will need to be created and mailed. Where exactly, if we have thousands of guests that need said cards on military installations and bases? So how is that going to work? Then Social Security numbers and cards and that delivery. And so we quickly found, and I know, Jennifer, we have plenty of conversations with all the resettlement agencies, but definitely having some real candid conversations with state and locals, with private sector industry in regards to jobs. We have job openings. Yes, you do. We have individuals within OAW who are interested in employment. Yes, we do. We also need to figure out where these EADs are and where these
operational pieces that need to be in place.
So in theory, it made sense. Like, we have 85,000 Afghans who will be eligible, give or take, minus school, age appropriate, but eligible thousands for employment. They're eligible, yes. When can we employ And that was the worst call to get for me,
Oh yeah.
was to continue to get that call.
But I have to commend you because you were on those calls every Friday, I think. Like,
with a smile
yeah,
saying, they should be available soon, right? And so, we get to that point. And now on this side of it, being able to get reports from some of our private sector partners who are saying, I was able to hire.
Mhm.
Not only was I able to hire, but I was able to hire at a good salary, right?
Mhm.
Like we're talking about, we use terms equity and diversity and inclusion and all these terms, and they're great terms. But when it comes down to how we actually operationalize some of these efforts, OAW definitely, we saw that in real time, and we had individuals that were like courier services saying, I got the EADs and I got the SSNs and I'm taking them over to this location for distribution, because we knew it was very apparent to us that we needed to get these items into the hands, because that was the thing that was holding up. The jobs were there.
Yeah.
Everybody was at the table, but it was in the details and we need to get it done. And so I pray and hope, that as we continue on, we've got these lessons learned. But overall, and what we had to do in a moment's notice,
Yeah.
I still think is remarkable. And now, having the temporary protected status for Afghanistan, and making sure that that in that 18-month process, talking about equity. Right now, we need to have legal services organizations that are going to help to process their paperwork in order for them to get the permanent status. Like all
Sure.
those things have to come in, and I think that's where that public-private public-private partnership peace soup, as a gentleman used to call it,
Mhm.
where that peace soup comes in, and it's so important because you have to have the pieces, all the pieces of the puzzle ready to go.
Yeah.
When you need to plug them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think OAW by itself would be a great business case study. Like, how do you operationalize a scale of that, operation of that scale in so short
Yes.
time, and there will be so much lessons learned. I still think it's very less understood as to the complexity of that and the outcome that we're trying to reach. And probably, we talked about Project Gateway with what we have been trying to start. But again, getting industry to understand the different steps in the process, I think it's a life's lesson.
People keep asking me when the book is coming out. I'm like, I don't know. Whoever writes it, I'll sign on at least a paragraph.
Good. No, I'm sure that that's something that probably can be done in 2 weeks, but you'll take a shot at it. We can't wait to hear that. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, Karen. I've always enjoyed working with you. I'm sure there's a lot more to come, and the leadership relations that we have. I understand for one person that we have to give opportunities to people and to tap into the potential, also learn from each other. So thank you for being a partner in that journey. I'm sure you'd have the potential to change a lot of other lives, Giovanni included, and take people under your wings so that they can rise.
Absolutely.
So great talking to you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.